Traversing through primitive society, returning to old age and becoming a baby. Ning Shen didn't want his whole life to be trapped in primitive tribes, let alone his remains, to become a research material for future people, so he worked hard to break free from this cage. He saw the sunset through his pupils, watched the sunrise and sunset in the mountains, understood the true meaning of the world's operation, and created the law of longevity. He took care of the female primitive people who had recovered him, leaving behind a rich heritage for the primitive tribe that treated him well, and created a path of merit and immortality. He surveyed the world with his feet, recorded strange beasts he encountered, organized cooking experiences, wrote books on medicinal staple foods, and achieved great merit through closed-door cultivation. Waiting for the achievement of the Xiaoyao fairy queen. The woman wrapped in amber in the secluded place suddenly opened her eyes leisurely. My name is Eden. Can this vast world still be as brilliant as gold? Ning Shen. I have become a fairy, and you only told me that this is a shattered world. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1 Ning Shen, 5 years. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wow, wow. The cry of babies resounded in primitive tribes. The wildflower held the baby in her arms at a loss. As a member of a tribe, her daily task is to help grind stones and collect wild fruits. This baby was accidentally discovered in the jungle when she wanted to go further away and collect more wild fruits. For tribes, population is an important resource. Babies are the future of tribes. So, without hesitation, she carried the white and tender baby back. She, who has not yet been a mother, doesn't know what to do when her child cries. It's okay. This is already a tribe. If it's in a primitive forest, she's probably going to throw the baby away. The child's crying can call out fierce beasts. Give it to me. As the tribal leader, the tree brought the baby over. Hold him gently. Then gently shake it. Wild flowers. You will also have children in the future. You can learn now. The tree teaches while practicing. I haven't waited for the wild flower to look at him with admiring eyes. The baby's cries were even louder than before. The others around suddenly showed a smirk. Cough cough. Perhaps the child is hungry. Wild flowers. You don't have milk, take some sticky thing and give it to this child to eat. The tree looked at the wildflowers and said awkwardly. Although it is a primitive tribe, in order to allow more babies to survive, many people who can conceive in winter and give birth in autumn have abundant resources, which leads to a higher survival rate. It's only spring now, and the tribe's people who don't have a lactation period can only feed this baby with other things. As for the origin of the baby, the tree doesn't care. As wildflowers imagine, population is the most important resource in a tribe. Under the arrangement of the tree, the wildflowers were busy and restless. Soon, a bowl of food mixed with wild fruits and a little bit of minced meat was brought to the baby. They didn't consider whether the baby could eat these things, because if they couldn't, it could only be said that the baby's life should be like this. There are no more options in primitive tribes. Under the careful feeding of the wildflowers, the baby actually ate the sticky food bit by bit. After eating half a bowl, the baby just stopped eating. Looking at the baby's dark eyes, they gurgled and seemed to be looking at the world. The wildflower's face also showed a happy smile. She took the child from the tree's hand, carefully but gently holding him, and her words kept introducing the tribe to the child, as if it would bring her closer. As the tree looked at the wildflowers, it sighed and said, "Wildflowers, if you want to raise them, you won't be able to conceive this winter." Wildflowers are already 12 years old, and in this primitive society with an average age of only 20 or 30, they have reached a suitable age for reproduction. But due to having an extra baby, if one becomes pregnant recklessly, even with the help of the tribe, the life of the wildflower will be very difficult. And this is not something that happens every year or two. Before this child is 2 or 3 years old, wildflowers have to be distracted to take care of him. By the time she's ready for pregnancy next time, she's already a 15-year-old girl. Those men may not be willing to reproduce with such an old girl. Having him is enough. The wildflower looked at the baby in her arms and said. She didn't want to get pregnant at all. The screams and tears during childbirth, the possibility of death at any moment, made her already filled with fear about this matter. If it had been in the past, as a member of the tribe, she would have naturally made a great contribution to the tribe. After choosing a strong man named Yi, she would have waited for herself to walk in front of death. But now that she has retrieved this baby, she has also made a contribution to the tribe. Even if someone is willing to take care of her child, she is not willing to give it to others. Let's wait until you're 15 years old. The tree didn't say much. He asked Wildflower to take the child back and lightened her workload during this period, allowing her to focus more on taking care of the child. Wildflowers are very happy. She held the baby in her arms and returned to her own home. This small dilapidated place, which was not as good as a tent, was the harbor called home where they would live in the future. In the future, you should call me Mom. The wildflower held up the baby and said happily. But she didn't notice a hint of helplessness in the baby's eyes. Wait until night falls. The wildflower, which had been busy all day, was tired and fell asleep. The baby lying next to her. It's looking around with complex eyes. Others' travels either lead to becoming royalty or aristocrats, or become the children of aristocrats. The worst. At least one can also dominate in times of chaos. Am I the only one who has traveled to this primitive society that has not even been recorded in history? Ning Shen looked at the tattered ceiling and thought helplessly in his heart. If he had traveled to other eras, not to mention anything else, Ning Shen still had the confidence to have no worries about food and clothing. However, in primitive societies like this, he was lucky to have survived over 30, and he couldn't do anything more. And his greatest achievement in this lifetime may be finding a place to bury himself, preserving his remains completely, and waiting for years for future people to conduct archaeological research. Just thinking of this, Ning Shen immediately shuddered. This cage is destined to remain unchanged. Filled him with fear of future life. Even if he is able to lead the people of primitive tribes to live a worry-free life of clothing and food. But it's just that. His children will also struggle in the wind and snow in the future, and may die at any time under the claws of beasts. In his past life, he would rather be single than married, but he does not want his children to experience the hardships they have experienced. But compared to the later world's joking claims on the internet and the beginning of hell-born in vocational toilets, perhaps primitive society is even more terrifying than hell. Anyway. At least. Survive first. Then consider how to break free from this cage. Ning Shen made a decision in his heart. After all, he is just a baby now, and can only rely on his mother Loli, who is 11 or 12 years older than him, to live in primitive society. Only by living can he possibly change this tragic future. Even if it cannot be changed, it can only be decided not to let future generations bear these hardships after they are strong. And now, as a baby, all he can do is eat and sleep, wake up and eat. No matter how much he thinks, it will only add to his troubles. Time flies by. Under the careful care of wildflowers. 5 years. It's fleeting. Chapter 2. I will leave here sooner or later. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ning Shen grew from a baby to a child. Wildflowers have also become old girls in the tribe. However, compared to a peer who gave birth at the age of 12, 17-year-old wildflowers are particularly beautiful. She has never experienced pregnancy and childbirth before. Has a charm that does not belong to this era. Originally, the tree thinks no one would be willing to reproduce offspring with an old girl like Wildflower. But since Wildflower was 15 years old, she has been receiving meat gifts from men in the tribe every day. Judging from this, there are probably not a few people who have fallen in love with her. However, the meat that serves as a reproductive signal. They were all retreated one by the Wildflowers. Her determination of having him is enough became even more firm as Ning Shen grew up day by day. But why do you call yourself Ning Shen? Listen to Mom. Isn't it good to call it Wildvine? It's similar to my mother's name. The Wildflower bent down and leaned in front of Ning Shen. She originally named Ning Shen Nodo, but after Ning Shen learned to speak, she immediately rejected her name and instead referred to herself as Ning Shen. What a strange name. Wildflowers don't understand what this strange name really means. Names like flowers, grass, and vines are so beautiful. But Ning Shen didn't explain either. He knew he couldn't go back in time, he just left his name to commemorate his former self. Wildflowers. Did you find bamboo today? Ning Shen shifted the topic. You need to call me Mom, it's Mom. The Wildflower pouted and said. But she still took out the bamboo she found when picking wild fruits today. She had accidentally picked up bamboo before, and when Ning Shen saw it, he asked her to bring back more bamboo while collecting. Although she didn't know what this bamboo was for, she didn't refuse the request for the child she found. Thank you. Wildflowers. Ning Shen looked at the bamboo with a happy smile on his face. He is only 5 years old this year and can only help within the scope of the tribe. He cannot leave the tribe too far, so some things can only be brought back by the Wildflowers. And with this most crucial bamboo, he was finally able to create the gun belonging to primitive society. Bows and arrows. I'm Mom. Don't say thank you to Mom. Wildflower insisted. But seeing Ning Shen burying her head in work, she still sat beside with a smile, helping to weave the vine ropes needed by the tribe. Wait until night falls. A bonfire was lit in the middle of the tribe. When men bring their prey back from hunting and dance around the campfire. Ning Shen Kai lifted his head under the temptation of the aroma of meat. Hurry up and eat something. Wake up tomorrow and play with your toys. The Wildflower smiled and said to Ning Shen. She was still holding a few skewers of roasted wild animal meat in her hand. Although she didn't know what Ning Shen was doing, she felt that it should be similar to when she was a child, using stones and wood as toys. This is not a toy, but something that can help the people of the tribe not worry about meat. Ning Shen said very seriously. Anyway, he is now a member of this primitive tribe, and for himself and for the Wildflowers, he wants to make the tribe better, just like how the people in the tribe have always taken good care of him. Although the tribe seems to have no shortage of meat now, when food is scarce in winter, this reserve is not enough to sustain everyone, and every winter is also the most severe time for the tribe to reduce its workforce. So, prior to this, he wants to find a way for everyone in the tribe to catch more prey, so that they no longer worry about food in winter. Mom believes you can do it. Let's eat now. The Wildflower looks like it's teasing children. But Ning Shen didn't care. Before the results appear, too many explanations are just wasting time. After taking a few bites of the grilled skewers, Ning Shen continued to busy himself, while Wildflower sat next to him, holding her face and looking at her raised child, with a smile on her face that never disappeared. Wait until dawn the next day. Wildflowers have just woken up from home. The screams outside made her feel somewhat puzzled. Wildflowers. Wildflowers. Take a look. The bows and arrows made by Ning Shen are also too powerful. A few women brought the Wildflower to the middle of the tribe, and the words about Ning Shen made the wildflower feel a little worried. She doesn't know what a bow and arrow is, she just knows that it concerns her own child, so she's afraid that something might go wrong. But when she saw Ning Shen being worshipped by a group of men who looked at Ning Shen, who was much smaller than herself, her worries slowly subsided. Afterwards, when you see, the arrow shot in Ning Shen's hand made a beautiful arc in the air, piercing through the distant wooden stake. The wildflower's eyes suddenly widened. This is something that can make everyone no longer worry about food. Wildflowers. I did it. Ning Shen raised his bow and arrow and smiled as he spoke to the wildflower. But the wildflower looked at the boy who was still very short, but it seemed to see the tree leading everyone to live, and its small body made people feel great. You're really amazing. The wildflower picked up Ning Shen and kissed his cheek with a snap. Looking at Ning Shen's pretended disdain, Wildflower pouted angrily, but the others next to her laughed. As the leader of the tribe, the tree has become a bit older in these 5 years, but today his face is full of joy. This child may be able to lead everyone forward. The tree thought in its heart. He didn't say anything immediately, but was observing Ning Shen's subsequent actions and arranging one matter after another around Ning Shen's invention. And it also starts from this winter. Tribes no longer need to worry about food. Whether it's bows and arrows that can easily capture prey, a fishing cage that allows children to catch fish, or it could be the breeding of wild chickens and ducks that we are starting to try. All of this makes the tribe's life better and better day by day. As Ning Shen grew older, he also gained more and more support from tribal residents. Even though he was just a child, he gradually became a leader recognized by many people. It's just that we haven't received actual concessions yet. As for Wildflowers, she was determined to make Ning Shen call her mother, but in the end, she still received the nickname Wildflower. If you don't call me Mom again, I'll be angry. The Wildflower looked at Ning Shen and said. Ning Shen, who is already 8 years old, is now as tall as her shoulders. The feeling of watching her own child grow up makes Wildflower feel even more joyful than a title. Got it. Wildflowers. Go outside and get angry first. The tree is looking for me. Ning Shen's gaze turned to the tree outside the house, which was watching them. The Wildflower's cheeks blushed slightly, as if she had been seen privately interacting with Ning Shen and felt shy. Wait until the Wildflowers leave. The already very old tree directly indicates the purpose of its arrival. Ning Shen. I want you to be the leader of the tribe. The tree is very serious. Even if Ning Shen is only 8 years old. But what Ning Shen has done over the years has proven that he has this ability. And he originally thought so. Ning Shenhui agreed to this proposal without hesitation. Because what he is doing now is trying to help the tribe. However, Ning Shen's answer stunned the tree. Tree. I won't continue living in the tribe. Sooner or later, one day, I will leave here. Chapter 3. Forever Staying in Memory. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sooner or later, I will leave here. This is an idea that Ning Shen has had for a long time. Even if he is very clear. He who stays behind will surely become the leader of the tribe. And this tribe will inevitably become even larger under his leadership. But that's all he can do. And this is not related to personal ability. This is a limitation of the times. Even if he becomes the leader, he can live a good life. Have you ever seen such a brilliant civilization, Ning Shen? How could you be willing to spend the rest of your life in this primitive tribe? In ancient times, the voice of human civilization was struggling to survive. Perhaps I will never see it in my lifetime, the magnificent scenery of my past life. But at least I can take a little look. This belongs to the ancient style, right? Ning Shen has made a decision. He will leave the tribe to explore various places after growing up and becoming stronger, equipped with more protective measures. Even dying in the claws of that beast is better than dying in this corner. And maybe this is not some ancient era, but some mystical world. That way, maybe I can live a little longer. Ning Shen still has fantasies in his heart. Even if the probability is almost zero. But if you don't leave this primitive tribe, the probability will always be zero. As the leader, the tree fell into silence upon hearing Ning Shen's words. He noticed early on that Ning Shen was different from the children in the tribe, especially his fair skin, which was out of place with everyone. He just didn't expect that Ning Shen's idea would be so great, but he couldn't force Ning Shen to stay. Tribes. It exists because of group heating. If Ning Shen himself is already hot enough, why bother with these warmth? Even if it's leaving the tribe. You will always be safe, too. We will always bless you. The tree said seriously. And Ning Shen showed a beautiful smile. Tree. I haven't planned to leave yet. Even if you have to leave. You have to wait until you grow up. After hearing Ning Shen's words. The tree's face also showed a smile. Only the two of them knew about this conversation. The tree didn't tell anyone. Ning Shen, like before, relied on his own insights and knowledge to make the tribe better and better. Wildflowers notice. The smiles of the children in the tribe are increasing. Adults are no longer as tired as before. A tribe originally consisting of only a few dozen people. It has gradually developed to hundreds of people. And all of this. It's all related to the child she picked up. You're really amazing. Let mom hug you again. The wildflower firmly embraced the 10-year-old Ning Shen. Although Ning Shen pretended to be disgusted on his face, he did not refuse the embrace of the wildflower, and there was still a hint of smile in his eyes. After all, it is because of the wildflowers that he survived, and it is also because of the wildflowers that he was able to grow up smoothly. If I just leave like this. Wildflowers. Would it be very sad? This idea suddenly came to Ning Shen's mind. I will definitely do it. After all, I am her child. She's only the one child, me. Ning Shen's mood suddenly felt a bit low. Perhaps for primitive humans, whether their companions left or died, they would only be sad for a short while at most, and then continue to strive to live. But for the modern Ning Shen, that regret may remain forever. Just like the commonplace afternoons of childhood, it can make me feel lost in thought for years to come. What's wrong with you? The wildflower noticed Ning Shen's emotional loss. It's okay. Ning Shen shook his head. He tried to show a smile, hoping that the wildflowers wouldn't have to worry. But Wildflower was not at ease. Even though she was a 22-year-old woman, perhaps she had never given birth and was protected by Ning Shen and trees. She still looked like a child, trying every way to make Ning Shen happy. Let's go hiking with Mom. Mom used to run up the mountain when she was unhappy when she was a child. Go, go, go. The wildflower pulled Ning Shen and wanted to go to the nearby small hill. Ning Shen naturally knew that there were hardly any wild beasts on this mountain slope, and they were all hunted by the men of the tribe. Usually, it was the women of the tribe who picked wild fruits and vegetables on it. But it's almost evening now, even if this mountain slope is so safe, it's not the right place to go now. Hee hee. You don't know that anymore. When it's almost evening, that's where it looks. The wildflower said with a mysterious expression. Ning Shen knew what she meant by beauty, it was nothing more than the scenery at sunset. For him, it was not a novel scenery, but for the people of the tribe, it was rare to see. When struggling to survive, no one has time to lift their heads and look up at the azure sky. But Ning Shen cannot withstand wildflowers. Under the drag of the wildflower, he could only bring his bow and arrow to provide himself with extra security, and then follow behind the wildflower and climb the not-too-high mountain slope. For the two members of the primitive tribe, even though there were no artificial roads on this mountain slope, they still walked on flat ground, and the weeds and wild vines did not cause any obstacles. Soon, the two of them arrived at the hillside. The wildflower brought Ning Shen and sat down on a large stone. Hee. You spend all day in the tribe. I'm sure I've never seen such a beautiful place before. Wildflowers proudly introduced their secrets to Ning Shen. Without the cover of trees. In the evening, the sky was clearly visible in front of Ning Shen. The distant clouds shone brightly under the sunset, and the sky was dyed orange-yellow by the sunset. Birds flew by, as if chasing the last ray of light. Ning Shen didn't speak. His gaze shifted from the sunset to the wildflowers. The afterglow of the sunset falls on the sky, on the wilderness, on the lake, and also on her cheeks. It looks good. The wildflower suddenly said. Her gaze was fixed on the sunset ahead. Even she rarely sees this kind of scenery. She gave all the precious things she cherished to her children. And it also made it even more difficult for Ning Shen to speak the words he wanted to leave. It looks good. Ning Shen looked back at the sunset. His emotions are very chaotic now, and he is struggling with the thoughts he left behind in his mind. I actually heard what you said to the tree back then. The wildflower suddenly said. Ning Shen suddenly shuddered. However, It's not a big deal. Mom knows you don't belong here, the distance is where you belong. Just like this scenery, there will eventually be a day when it disappears. So, go do what you want to do. The wildflower looked at Ning Shen with a smile on its face. Ning Shen looked at her, the sunset imprinted in her pupils, seeming to be in a final struggle, but gradually being dragged down by time and disappearing into the world at any time. She wanted to leave the sunset behind, but it gradually faded out of her pupils, and the radiance gradually dissipated. But at this very last moment, Ning Shen, who saw the sunset through the pupils of the wildflower, suddenly understood something. The setting sun will eventually leave. But the scenery imprinted in the pupils will forever remain in memory. Chapter 4. Departure. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wildflowers are prepared for their children to leave at any time. But what surprised her was the next period of time. Ning Shen did not mention any thoughts of leaving. Instead, he often runs to the nearby hillside. Every time. He always goes before sunrise and returns after sunset. The people in the tribe are a bit worried. Ning Shen is the next leader they recognize, and if something unexpected happens, it will be great. But after discovering that Ning Shen always returns safely, the people of the tribe are no longer concerned about this matter. Perhaps Ning Shen wants to play on the hillside. This is the idea of many people in the tribe. But Wildflower doesn't think so. He's definitely not the kind of playful child. However, because you can also see Ning Shen. She didn't say anything more. It seems that she is afraid that once some questions are spoken, Ning Shen will directly leave her world. In that case, it's better to be like this now. At least I can still see him every day. However, on a certain day, there are no dancers around the campfire in the tribe. Everyone is sleeping in their own place. Ning Shen did not return to the tribe. Wildflower became nervous all over. Is the future that she doesn't want to see finally coming? Wildflowers look at the nearby hillside. She knows. As long as she climbed up like before, she could know the ending of the story, but she dared not take this step and buried her head low, as if this could avoid the end. Wait until dawn. Can we see that child again? She curled up into a ball with such thoughts in her arms. The tears that should have been left only by pain inexplicably appeared in the corner of her eyes. At this moment, She felt emotions that members of other primitive tribes had never felt before. And she also felt that today's night would be incredibly long. But the sunrise has still arrived. Despite staying up all night, she also heard the commotion in the tribe. Ning Shen's disappearance was discovered by others. Wild flowers. Where is Ning Shen? Did he encounter something? The members of the tribe gathered around the wildflowers, hoping to get an answer from them. Wildflowers open their mouths, but don't know what to say. The tree was beside her, sighing and preparing to explain something. However, at this moment, the wildflower suddenly pushed away the crowd and ran towards the direction of the small hill. Everyone looked at it, and in the dense mist, Ning Shen walked towards them, bathed in the morning light with a smile. But he eventually fell into her arms. Didn't you leave? When did I say I left? Ning Shen smiled. The people around didn't know what had happened. But Ning Shen's return still reassured them. The rest of the tribe continued their busy daily routine. The tree appeared next to Ning Shen. If you're going to leave, last night's party was a good time. The next period of time, the people in the tribe will pay attention to you. You probably won't be able to leave so easily. The tree sighed. He doesn't want Ning Shen to leave, but he won't be constrained to stay either. Leave. Let's postpone it a bit. I don't need to rush for a moment or two. Ning Shen said. Perhaps seeing the sunset in the pupils of the wildflower gave him an indescribable insight, and watching the sunset and sunrise during this period further transformed his understanding. So, he gradually created something that should be called the longevity technique. He didn't know if this thing could make him immortal, because he was also a naive child on the path of cultivation, walking slowly forward. But at least, can make me live for a long, long time. Can you let me accompany my mother through the years to come? Ning Shen thought in his heart. He reached out to stroke the long hair of the wildflower. He tried to teach her the law of longevity. However, whether it's wildflowers or other people in the tribe, unable to learn this so-called magic technique. Or rather, they can't understand at all. This kind of cultivation is created through the perception of nature. The demand for intelligence is really too high. Ning Shen sighed. He is already 20 years old now. Just like wildflowers. He did not choose to leave any offspring, but chose to be alone. The women in the tribe who fell in love with him were very sad, but the wildflower laughed happily. Are you not afraid of being forced? Wildflower once asked like this. You are the leader. Who dares to force the leader's child? Ning Shen smiled and answered. At the age of 15, the tree had completed his life and he did not choose to become the leader of the tribe. Instead, he appointed the wildflower to this position. And he, as usual, tried his best to help the tribe and make everyone's lives better and better. When do you plan to leave? The wildflower, already 32 years old, has an unparalleled charm and beauty. It's not urgent. At least, let me take care of you for the rest of your life. Ning Shen replied. After mastering the longevity technique, he doesn't have to rush out of the tribe either. His lifespan will be very long. He can use a small part of his life to accompany the wildflowers on their journey. But his words still drew the beating of the wildflower, but in the end, the wildflower still smiled and leaned its head on his shoulder. She doesn't know what the longevity technique is. In her opinion, Ning Shen chose to give up leaving the tribe and decided to stay for her. She is very happy. Her world will always have him. Under the guidance of Ning Shen, the tribe also developed into a massive tribe of thousands of people. Following this trend, the tribe will inevitably surpass 10,000 people. At that time, the tribe may be able to change its name to the country, leaving a brilliant mark in the development process of human civilization. However, all these wild flowers can no longer be seen. In 3 years, the wild flower passed away. Ning Shen originally intended to save her. At least it can delay the lifespan for several years. But the wild flower still chose to give up. At least now, I am still very good looking. And not like a tree. The skin is wrinkled and looks as ugly as old tree bark. Right. Well, yes, you're the most beautiful, my mom. Ning Shen nodded. This is the first time he has called her that. The wildflower showed its most beautiful smile. She left at the most beautiful moment of her appearance. She closed her eyes with the company of her own child. Ning Shen sat in front of her grave for a long time without saying anything. After handing over the position of leader to a member he highly valued, he walked alone towards the wilderness. His departure was not obstructed by anyone. Even if everyone is very reluctant. But Ning Shen, who leads the development of the tribe, leaves behind a huge heritage for the tribe, and is respected by all tribe members, has already surpassed the category of a leader. Nothing he does will be stopped. Including leaving the tribe. And after he stepped out of the tribe's territory, a mysterious feeling suddenly surged in my heart. He stopped his steps, looking back at the distant tribes and small graves. Is this the gift you gave me? Still. The rewards the world has given me. Chapter 5. Xiaoyao, Merit, Another Path. You are listening at novelfull.audio. At first, Ning Shen doesn't have many ideas. He just wanted to walk around and witness the scenery of this ancient era. Even if it means dying in a foreign land. It's better than being trapped in that primitive tribe. But, after mastering the longevity technique, he feels, perhaps I can see the scenery of my past life again. The development of civilization will also be gradually presented before his eyes. So, be a historian. Record the changes in the entire world. Perhaps it's a good choice. Ning Shen once thought so in his heart. People always have a purpose. Only in this way can my heart settle down. Just like in a tribe, he did his best for the wildflowers and for treating his tribe well. After the concern that belonged to the tribe disappeared, he should also change his way of life instead of wandering aimlessly in this world like a lonely ghost. The historian who records human development is one of his choices. But, after leaving the tribe, the mysterious feeling that emerged in my heart, it gave him another idea. Especially, that may be a gift belonging to the world. Make him feel like he can take another path. If we follow the longevity technique to the end. Even if I have an endless lifespan, I will only become another form of immortality. After the reaction of the star's core is exhausted, I will also die with the planet. If we compare it with fantasy novels from previous lives, I just have a long lifespan, not a truly carefree nature. At least, not enough strength. Let me leave the planet and go to the universe to survive. Ning Shen was pondering in his mind. Understanding what nature creates, nature is also limited by nature, and nature is already a part of the planet, making it difficult to break through its own constraints. And now that he has a long lifespan, why not think about how to make yourself stronger? There is no need to target any hypothetical enemies. Just achieve true carefree. Not affected by any illness, injury, aging, or other factors affecting life and health. At any time, one can freely decide whether to continue to grow. And have enough strength to resist everything. This should be considered the carefree in that fantasy novel, right? Ning Shen has also thought about it this way. But at that time, he was still full of confusion and ignorance about this path. He had planned to use his long lifespan to search for the possibility of this path while becoming a historian. However, that belongs to the world as a gift. But let him see this road clearly. If you have to describe it. Should the gift of this world be considered merit? Because it helps the tribe develop. Let more people survive. Let civilization make progress. So, after I chose to leave the tribe, the world began to settle my merits, allowing me to see another path. And as long as you continue to follow this path, you can achieve true freedom. Ning Shen uses his past life experience to explain what has happened. However, what surprised him was the merit gained seems to have been divided into two parts. One is related to the tribe. The other one is related to wildflowers. Even the merit of wildflowers is much greater than that of the tribe. Why? Ning Shen cannot understand. Clearly, the development of the tribe will affect more people. But why is there so much more about wildflowers than about tribes? He tried to explore the origin through that merit. This belongs to his merit, and it is also like a part of his body, obediently allowing him to be at his mercy. Not long ago, that reason surfaced in his heart. Because filial piety is one of the virtues. Ning Shen was taken aback. In his opinion, to take care of the wildflower, who is his mother, and let her live a happy life, is what he should do. But he forgot that this was ancient times, and humans were still struggling to survive in primitive tribes. In primitive tribes, when there is a shortage of food, the elderly are the first to be abandoned. Even if there is sufficient food, the weight that the elderly can obtain is also very small. And if other accidents occur, the elderly also have the lowest survival rate. There is no right or wrong in this matter. This is a limitation of the current era. Even though some people may have the idea of taking care of their mothers and elderly, this awareness is just emerging and they don't know what to do. As for someone like Ning Shen, who allows the wildflowers to have worry-free food and clothing, they can smile happily every day, and after her death, they handle various things for her and even build a tomb to commemorate her. In today's era, it can be said to be incredible. And due to his strong influence in the tribe, everything he does will be seen by the members of the tribe. The story of his treatment of wildflowers will naturally be remembered by the tribe and passed down from generation to generation as a story. As long as civilization is no longer cut off, his actions will become a role model for future generations. And the influence of filial piety, it will also continue to increase over time. It can be said, the merit that comes from wildflowers now is only an extremely small part of the path of filial piety in the future. It is like a babbling stream, slowly flowing towards the distance, gradually piling up a vast ocean. If that's the case, there aren't many merits from wildflowers now. It takes time to continuously accumulate. And cannot obtain massive merits at once. Ning Shen suddenly realized. One of the virtues of filial piety is related to humanity. Animal filial piety stems more from instinct. If human civilization were to be cut off at this point, the merits derived from it would naturally not be obtainable. So it is impossible to settle completely at once, we can only rely on time to gradually obtain it. It's okay. Ning Shen's greatest need is time. But in that case, I will continue to work hard to ensure that human civilization can continue to exist. Otherwise, in case of any natural disaster one day, my source of merit is about to be interrupted. Ning Shen shook his head. However, he doesn't think there's any trouble. After having a long lifespan, even if it's Youshen moving mountains, for him, it's just a trivial matter. Even the slightest probability would become infinite with him. And it won't restrict any of my actions either. I can accumulate more merits bit by bit while enjoying the scenery of this era. Wait until there is enough. Then Xiaoyao is within reach. Ning Shen smiled. He looked at the sunset in the distance, the clouds dyed red by the sunset, as if he had seen the scenery with the wildflowers on a small hill. Even now. Are you still helping me, too? Mother. Chapter 6. Fear of People. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. You remember. This thing is inedible. Even if it's cooked, it can't be eaten. It is inherently toxic. Ning Shen pointed to the gorgeous mushroom in front of him and said to the people around him. This is the 337th tribe he encountered while walking in the wilderness. Just like the tribes we've encountered before. He will stay in it for a period of time. Only by informing them of what they have seen and heard in the wilderness, and imparting more knowledge to them, can they choose to leave here. And the members of the surrounding tribes, as they listened attentively to Ning Shen's account, their eyes were also filled with a look of worship. They never thought about it. Such dangerous and terrifying deep mountains and wild forests. Surprisingly, some people dare to walk and shuttle through this taboo. I never thought of it. This person's knowledge will be so profound. Whether it's the geography of the wilderness, strategies for dealing with various wild beasts, or cooking methods for various foods. This person can speak eloquently. And when facing members who are helpless even with witches. He just pulled out a few weeds, boiled a bowl of soup, and saved that person. In the future, if you encounter someone who has become unconscious after eating mushrooms, let them drink this directly. As long as you discover it in time and make them spit it out as soon as possible, then they will still be saved. Otherwise, you can wait for the banquet. Ning Shen said a joke that only he could understand. And the members of the surrounding tribes, although they don't know what this means, can still hear that it's not a good thing. Alright. That's all there is left. All the ways to eat, and how to make it delicious. I have already handed it over to you. Don't eat anything else recklessly. Let's meet again in the future. Ning Shen stood up and waved his hand. After rejecting the appeals of the surrounding members, he once again walked alone into the forbidden and terrifying forest. Of course. This is for humans from other tribes. For Ning Shen. He lived in the wilderness for a long, long time. These places are even safer than his life in the tribe. The marks representing the year, which are used to record time, have already densely covered the entire bamboo slips. Even if time is important for Ning Shen, it has lost its original meaning. But he still stubbornly records time. This way. One day, the wanderer will return home. He was able to tell his mother about the changes of the years in front of her grave. However, in recent years, are those monsters appearing more and more frequently? I remember the first time I encountered it. On a day more than 100 years after I left the tribe. Now it's just a few short years. 2 ends have already emerged. Will their quantity increase in the future? Ning Shen took out the bamboo slip behind him and looked at the text on it, his face slightly solemn. Traveling 500 miles north of the mountain and 500 miles by water, as for Rao Mountain, the vegetation is flourishing, with many yao and by plants. When encountering beasts, it looks like a tiger and is covered in purple and black, which people fear. This is what he recorded in the previous tribe. Everything else can be skipped. The purple-black monster, resembling a tiger, made Ning Shen very wary. It can be said. If it weren't for his timely action. The small tribe with hundreds of people just now. I will definitely be slaughtered by this monster. This thing is not something that modern humans can handle. But it inexplicably emerged. Is it difficult? What kind of fantasy world is this really? And those monsters are the so-called demon race. Ning Shen was pondering in his mind. In these long years, his footsteps have almost covered the entire world, even crossing the sea several times. But besides these monsters, he never encountered anything strange again. A peculiar existence like him. He has never seen anything before. A high probability. This should still be the ancient Earth. It's only for some unknown reasons that this monster emerges. Ning Shen came to this conclusion. Just like how he was able to grow and help humanity develop by relying on his understanding of nature, and gain merit. The appearance of some inexplicable monsters seems to be something that cannot be understood. However, every tribe encountered. I have left behind better methods for making weapons. This way, it's like encountering those monsters again. They can at least survive more people. Ning Shen let out a deep breath. During his long journey in this world, he not only recorded geography, beasts, cuisine, and medicine, but also used existing methods and techniques to develop weapons that were more suitable for ancient humans. This way, when encountering the purple-black monster, one will not be helpless. Thanks to his efforts. Now he has a lot of merits in his body. In addition to filial piety, which continuously provides merit. The writing and language that were spread during contact with other tribes also provided him with continuous merit. It can be said. As long as human civilization is no longer disconnected. Even if he doesn't do anything anymore. His internal merits will also increase. Perhaps. I should consider shutting down for a while. Utilize great merit to wash oneself away. Let me become the true, carefree fairy. Ning Shen thought in his heart. This world is no longer shrouded in mist for him, and the scenery of ancient times has also imprinted in his eyes. And with the continuous provision of merit, he doesn't need to do anything else for now. So. It's also time to consider enhancing one's own strength. Otherwise. If stronger monsters emerge in the future. But I can't handle it. That's too weak, isn't it? Ning Shen made a decision. Years later. After dealing with a monster along the way. He also arrived at the secluded place he had already chosen. This place is located in a valley, and there are no wild beasts around, which is very suitable for him to practice in seclusion for a period of time. However. Prior to this. He stood in front of a huge amber for a long time. This amber was unexpectedly discovered by him in this valley a long, long time ago. What sets it apart from other amber is. What is sealed inside this amber is not an animal, but a person who cannot see its appearance clearly. Why? Will someone exist in amber? The original Ning Shen was puzzled. The current Ning Shen still doesn't understand. He just stood in front of the amber, quietly watching it for a long, long time. Perhaps. Wait until the achievements are free. I can only uncover this secret. Chapter 7. Pioneers. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. When practicing in the seclusion of Ning Shen. Under an unknown hill. The earth, which was supposed to be united, suddenly opened a huge gap. But. Strangely enough. When this crack cracks open. But it doesn't seem like an earthquake. Causing a huge commotion around. On the contrary. It has no movement or sound. Even the flying birds on the nearby trees are still building nests, seemingly unaware that the earth next to them has cracked open. Wait until someone comes out of it. The bird, who had only realized it later, quickly flapped its wings and left here. As agreed. We have a pioneer gathering every 10 years. Describe the progress of their respective plans. At other times. If unnecessary. Don't disturb each other. The man with white hair said coldly. I haven't waited for a few people around me to reply yet. The white-haired man walked alone into the dense forest. Hua. Please don't take it to heart. Since his little idol girlfriend died. He has always been like this. The gray-haired man apologized to the newly awakened woman. The woman named Hua shook her head in silence. After experiencing the dramatic changes of pre-civilization. Everyone has indescribable scars in their hearts. As a comrade in arms. I can naturally feel the other person's sadness. And if it weren't for Dr. May's plan, perhaps she will disappear along with civilization like the most brilliant and beautiful woman in that civilization, singing loudly. I will first find a way to contact Gracie. Hua. Regarding the Spark plan. If you encounter any trouble, you can come to me anytime. Su said to Hua very kindly. Subsequently, he looked at Danju and Sangshuan standing beside Hua, staring at the new world with bewildered eyes, and his voice rang out again. Please also take more photos of Gu Hua. Please rest assured. Dr. Su. We will protect Hua well. As the older sister, Sang Xian said very seriously. And Danju is also preparing to say something. But the next moment, a rumbling sound rang out. Her gaze immediately turned towards the direction where the white-haired man had left. Suddenly, not just her. Several people present showed a surprised expression on their faces. Is that a collapsing beast? Danju has grown his mouth. I saw it in the direction of the dense forest. The man with white hair was dragging the body of a shattered beast out. Kevin. What happened? Su's face became extremely serious. The white-haired man known as Kevin threw the shattered beast to the ground with the same cold expression on his face. As soon as I entered the dense forest, it suddenly attacked me. In this era, has there already been the birth of the collapsing beast? Kevin's gaze turned to Su. Su did not fall asleep. But before that, he had been observing the parallel worlds on the tree of imaginary numbers in the second God's key, attempting to find an answer for the development of modern civilization. He's really not quite sure. Su turned his gaze to Zhang Xian. Among the few people present, he is a doctor. Kevin and Hua are warriors, and there are only two researchers, Zhang Xian and Danju. Although in the pre-civilization era, when they only emerged, Zhang Xian and Danju were just two ordinary frontline researchers, in today's era, they should be considered top-notch. Especially, the civilization of this new world has just begun to sprout. It is not an exaggeration to call them prophets and gods. It shouldn't be. According to Dr. May's inference, collapsing beasts should not have been born in the early stages of civilization. Especially, we should still be at a time when civilization is budding and humans are fighting against nature. Collapsing beasts. Why was it born now? Zhang Xian was clutching his hair in confusion. Danju walked forward and carefully examined the body of the shattered beast brought back by Kevin. Although there are not too many instruments, but their experience is also sufficient to make judgments. These collapsing beasts are very weak. Even weaker than the collapsed beasts born on the eve of the first collapse of the previous civilization. But it shouldn't have been born so quickly. Still say it. Does this new world already have civilization? Danju raised his head and said his guess. Everyone present fell silent. They are not geniuses like Dr. May and Dr. Mebius, they are just following the plan. For some unexpected changes. They have just woken up from their slumber. Who would have thought of encountering a collapsing beast as soon as they left? It's like being blocked by the Demon King at the entrance of the novice village before the brave ones even leave. Anyway, the plan continues to advance. But regarding the information about these collapsing beasts, it's best to pay a little attention when executing your own plans on weekdays. Su made a conclusion about this incident. This sudden accident made him feel a bit urgent. But he is very clear. Now it is necessary to calm the emotions of one's friends. After the fall of pre-civilization, they no longer live for themselves. Kevin nodded. Leave the wreckage of the shattered beast for a few people to handle. His figure disappeared from everyone's sight once again. Hua. Your spark plan may be even harder. If civilization had already emerged in this era, the level of trouble with that plan may double. Su's gaze turned to Hua. As a pioneer, he should have believed in the abilities of his comrades, but the spark plan was initially carried out by the most brilliant and beautiful woman, but later it was taken over by Hua, who was usually not good at speaking. Faced with such a complex situation, he is still somewhat worried. But he couldn't spare much time himself to keep an eye on Hua. The number of universes that the Hensha project can observe is increasing exponentially. This also requires me to spend more energy and time on it. Hua. Sorry. You may need to handle these things yourself. Su said very directly. Although he usually appears as a riddle figure, sometimes he still needs to speak more clearly. No problem. Hua nodded calmly. Zhang Xian and Dan Zhu also pledged to assist Hua in completing the fire plan. Continuing. After handling the body of the collapsed beast, Su's figure also disappeared in front of them. Hua looked at the unfamiliar world with a somewhat confused voice and said, "What should we do next?" "What are you doing?" "Of course, first find a place to rest well. Then, let's learn more about the development of this world." P.S. Kevin's partner has been modified because this book is intended to go to the harem, so I can't miss out on May. Moreover, it seems that the Kaslana family has not inherited May's ideas. Even if Kevin were to switch partners, I feel it's still okay. I didn't make any mistakes in my memory about the matter of civilization improvement, collapse, and enhancement. It was only after the fire seed plan that I learned about it. The cost was the death of Zhang Xian, Danju and Ji Lin. Therefore, in this chapter, everyone saw the birth of the collapse beast, but did not speculate about civilization improvement. I feel that it is reasonable. If there are any unreasonable aspects, you can bring them up in the book review section and they will be corrected. Finally, could you please provide me with flowers and evaluation tickets? This data is really scarce. Chapter 8. Youshen Clan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hua does not consider himself a leader. In the pre-civilization era, she is just a soldier who follows orders and acts accordingly. First, follow behind the captain. Then he followed behind Kevin. Finally, follow Dr. May and move forward. And now, even if it's her leading the spark plan, but she is still more accustomed to following others' orders. So, when Zhang Xian said he wanted to go and understand the development of the world, she naturally instinctively followed behind, obeying orders like a warrior. Until Danju pushed her forward. Hua. You are the person in charge of this plan. We propose suggestions. You can accept it, you can oppose it. But no matter what, the person walking ahead is you. Danju said seriously to Hua. A hint of confusion flashed on Hua's face. She has never made any decisions, everything is arranged by others. Now that she is suddenly asked to make a choice, she surprisingly doesn't know what to do. Okay. Hua. Take us to the nearest human gathering place first. We are 2 weak researchers. But I really need your protection. Zhang Xian first pushed his sister Dan Zhu aside, and then smiled and said to Hua. Hua's personality needs to be gradually improved, rather than being drugged right away. My sister is still a bit lacking in this area. Hua nodded. After having a goal, Hua will not fall into confusion again. She carried Zhang Xian and Dan Zhu, walking in the dense forests of ancient times. Of course, the forests of this era will treat everyone equally. They naturally encountered attacks from many fierce beasts along the way. A mere tiger. Surprisingly, you dare to trouble us too. Hua. Kill it. Danju shouted excitedly. Staying in the sleeping chamber for so long. No matter what, it would make her feel very novel. Even as a sister, Ning Shen couldn't stand up at this moment. Only Hua still maintained her calm expression, as if she had no human emotions. And when I heard Dan Zhu's words, she didn't hesitate at all, let alone take out the divine key. Instead, she planned to directly strike here and kill the wild tiger with 3 punches from the tablet girl. However, at the moment when the tiger pounced on them, accompanied by a swish, an arrow penetrated the tiger's right paw. The sudden attack made the tiger feel pain, and even the forward movement could not be sustained. I didn't wait for it to take action. More arrows penetrated its body. The roar that should have intimidated the mountains and forests. At this moment, it turned into a howl of sorrow. What are you still doing there? Hurry up and run. Someone's voice rang out. Hua and Sangshuan Danzhu hesitated for a moment before realizing that the person was talking to them. The next moment, the girl with black hair ran to their side. She grabbed the hands of Ning Shen and Danzhu, but when she saw that Hua was still beside her, she froze for a moment and placed Danzhu's hand on Ning Shen's hand. She grabbed them all, and finally used her empty right hand to pull Hua and run. Encountering a big bug in the forest, still dumbfounded there. That means you're lucky. Just met us. Otherwise, you wouldn't even know you're dead. The girl with black hair said very seriously. Although the tiger had been pierced by their arrows, it did not die immediately. Instead, the pain on its body stimulated its wildness. But as there were other people entangled with the tiger, it no longer paid attention to the fleeing people, but angrily attacked them. Dragged by the girl like this, Hua did not speak. But Dan Zhu couldn't help it anymore. No, it's not. We can solve the tiger ourselves. Solve it. What are you doing to solve it? Are these small arms and legs? The 3 of you combined are not enough for it to have a full meal. The black-haired girl spoke angrily. A person who doesn't care about their own life doesn't know which tribe they belong to. After that, we must scold the leader of that tribe well and ask him how he teaches the tribe members. Hua can kill it with just 1 punch. I can't do it. The words that Danzhu had originally intended to say suddenly choked on his throat. She looked at Hua as if asking her, is that how you dismantled the stage? And Hua's expression was very serious. She had just woken up from her slumber, and it might be a bit difficult for her to kill the tiger with 1 punch, but she could definitely do it with 2 punches. But their conversation made the black-haired girl laugh. You guys are really interesting. Alright. It's safe here. Next, let's watch our hunting performance of the God clan. The girl let go of several people's hands. Although they are a bit far from the tiger's position now, they can still clearly see the entire process of hunting the tiger. After using arrows to penetrate the tiger, or rather to bleed it, others use long weapons to restrict its movement. The people present don't need to worry, they just need to consume slowly, and the tiger will die. No matter how hard the tiger struggles, it cannot break free from the crowd's encirclement. Not long ago, the bleeding tiger reluctantly collapsed to the ground. And a burst of excited cheers echoed around. Don't rush forward. Let's give it a try first. If this guy pretends to be dead, it would be very troublesome. The black-haired girl shouted loudly at this moment. She still looked very immature, not even considered an adult in the previous civilization, but the group of adults around her carefully followed her instructions. After several attempts to determine that the tiger was dead, everyone excitedly stepped forward and picked it up. This is our prey for the divine clan. Not only did you not help, but we also saved your life. This prey doesn't have your share. At most, I can make it up to you to attend our tiger banquet. The black-haired girl only has time now to speak to the 3 of Hua. For tribes, the prey is extremely important. Even though they benefited from the protection and wisdom of their ancestors, the gods did not worry about food issues, but they would not casually distribute food to others. Even if she is the next chieftain of the god clan, she is not qualified to do such a thing. Don't worry. We don't lack food. I won't care about your tigers. Hee hee. Even if we have a divine family, we dare not say we don't lack food. Your tone is really loud. Danju grabbed her hair. She didn't know for a moment how to communicate with this obviously primitive tribe girl. Fortunately, Hua, who used to be quiet and reserved, received a rare conversation at this moment. Do you have Shinshi? Very big. Chapter 9. Ji Lin, warning. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Do you have Shinshi? Very big. Hua's voice just fell. Everyone present who was originally celebrating suddenly fell silent and shed blood. Everyone looked at the girl dressed strangely with incredulous eyes. Why are you looking at us like this? Danju is a bit scared. Ning Shen stood behind Hua. And Hua was well aware that everyone present had no ill intentions, but she felt a bit unbelievable about her problem. Very big. Have you never heard of us having the divine clan before? Surprisingly, they would ask us whether we have a divine family or not. Tens of thousands of people. As many as tens of thousands of people. Have you ever seen people standing on a high slope, looking around, densely packed like a crowd? The black-haired girl widened her eyes. In today's era, communication between tribes is not uncommon, and when other tribes had only a few hundred people, their population of gods had already exceeded 10,000. Even her father, the current head of the Youshen clan, is already struggling to determine whether the Youshen clan is called a tribe or should be renamed. When there were only a few dozen or hundreds of people in other tribes, they still continued to call themselves tribes. Isn't it a bit too low? Key. Tens of thousands of people. That's quite a lot. It seems that the place will also be very large. Ning Shen nodded and said. In the era of primitive tribal development, having such a large number of people can definitely be called a miracle, and even changing the name to a country is not a problem. No, it's not. Tens of thousands of people. Aren't you surprised? The black-haired girl looked at the three people in front of her with a strange expression, like a child showing off a new toy to friends without receiving any feedback. And Danju, who had just been scolded, could finally speak with his hips crossed. Humph. Don't say tens of thousands of people. We've seen hundreds of thousands and millions of places. Oh, Ning Shen, why are you hitting me? Before Danju could be arrogant for a few seconds, he was punched in the head by Ning Shen. She held her head and looked at Ning Shen with tearful eyes, then shifted her gaze as if she wanted Hua to make the decision for her. However, Ning Shen took the lead and said, Don't talk nonsense. We only come from dozens of people, not millions. I knew she was bragging. Where could there be a place with millions of people? The black-haired girl said with a piercing expression. As for hundreds of thousands of people, she believes that in the future with the Shinji clan, it is definitely possible to break through this number, but millions are absolutely impossible. In that case, how much food should we find to meet everyone's daily needs? Can you take us to the Youshen family? Hua's voice rang out again. She still remembers the purpose of her and others on this trip. To find a place to rest and understand the development of the world. And having a place as big as Shinshi is exactly their best choice. Ning Shen glanced at Hua with some heartache. Even in such a situation, she was still paying attention to the so-called task. After sighing helplessly, her gaze turned to the black-haired girl. The black-haired girl naturally did not refuse. There were too many members of other tribes who wanted to join the Youshen clan, and she had long been accustomed to this situation. Then come with me. By the way, my name is Ji Lin. What are your names? The girl named Ji Lin greeted the three of them. On this journey back, Hua and others learned more about the situation of the Youshen clan, and Ji Lin also knew the names and personalities of these three people. That person named Dan Zhu, although he speaks incoherently, can talk to her very well. Sun Xian is also good, both in terms of conversation and topic discussion, he is very skilled. Only the girl named Hua remained silent all the way, but it's very difficult to join our Youshen family. If you don't have any special skills, I can probably only live outside the tribe. Ji Lin reminded and said. The Youshen family is really too big, and the food is very abundant. Even in the coldest winter, not many people will starve to death. So it leads to many people wanting to join the Youshen family, but they cannot afford to raise so many people, they can only choose the best among them. That is to say, what you call tens of thousands of people. Among them, only Xiaoyao is a true member of the Youshen clan. Are everyone else non-members of the Xin clan living on the outskirts of the tribe? Danju touched his chin and said. Has it already developed like this before it evolved into a country? Will it naturally evolve into a slave society in the future? As a researcher, Dan Zhu suddenly became interested in this social development. But if there is any major disaster, people outside will also be helpful and busy, and they can also be considered as people with a divine family. Ji Lin said stiffly. Do you really know? Dan Zhu is well aware of the consequences that such historical progress will lead to. I will. Really? Really, . The two were arguing without nutrition. Sun Xian quietly came to Hua's side and whispered, Hua, although the spark plan is very important, you should not only have plans in mind. Sometimes you can also do other things. She has known Hua since ancient times and knows his personality. She really wants to help Hua. But when Hua heard these words, she looked at Sun Xian with a gaze that seemed to say, besides the plan, what else do they have? Sun Xian remained silent. Yeah. After the fall of pre-civilization, they have nothing left. This plan is also a reason for them to survive. There will be, Sun Xian said. After marching for 2 full days and 2 nights, they finally saw the tribe that could be called a small country on a small hill. Youshen sure is very big. The city wall separates the interior from the exterior, making it very distinct. The internal houses have already been built with stones, perhaps to satisfy their basic needs. People have begun to pursue beauty, and there are various paintings on the walls that use the color of fruits. While those living on the periphery are not members of the Xin clan, their level of prosperity is not much lower than within. Although Xinji cannot provide so much food, it can rely on its reputation to create a place similar to a trading market outside. Even if one cannot enter the internal headquarters of the Youshen clan, outsiders can still rely on this market to prevent themselves from starving to death in the corner. Shocked. This is our god family. Looking at the surprised expression on Hua San's face, Ji Lin said proudly. They may not be able to provide food for everyone, but they will not watch others starve to death, but will find ways to help them. Otherwise, even if the reputation of the Shen family is great, there wouldn't be so many people living here. If you have any skills, you can take them out later. Otherwise, I want to enter the core residence of the Youshen clan. But there's nothing I can do. Ji Lin reminded again. And at this moment, she seemed to have remembered something and hurriedly added. By the way, after entering the core base, you must never approach the ancestral land, let alone do anything that insults the ancestral land of the God clan. Especially about the flower ancestor. Absolutely never have any ideas. Otherwise. Ji Lin's face was filled with a warning expression and he said, you will be pursued by the entire Youshen clan. P.S. Thank you to Shadow Boss, 13916. Boss's Reward. Chapter 10 Ancestor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ji Lin's words were very serious. Hua nodded earnestly. We know now. She is a well-behaved child, a soldier who obeys orders, and naturally won't ask too much about why. And Dan Zhu originally wanted to ask something, but her head was once again punched by Zhang Xian. In ancient societies, tribes placed great importance on their ancestral land. Dan Zhu. Don't talk nonsense. Zhang Xian warned and said. This made Dan Zhu have to keep his mouth shut. Okay. Except for the matters between ancestral land and flower ancestor. There are no other taboos. If you want to join us, you have the word God. Then come with me. Ji Lin greeted the three of them to follow her. And when passing through that bustling external market, whether it was Hua or Zhangshuan Danzhu, there was a hint of emotion in their eyes. Although this place is very backward for them. But people can show a smiling face. People can live happily. There are also children playing childish games. This situation. How long has it been since they've seen each other? When that disaster completely destroyed our civilization. Such a simple smile. It has long disappeared from everyone's faces. Zhang Xian sighed. But the touch brought to her by the people around her suddenly made her understand why Dr. Mei arranged so many plans. Even if the future civilization is no longer their civilization, they cannot watch helplessly as the beautiful world is once again destroyed. Not only to seek revenge against the collapse, but also to fight for this beauty. Perhaps we can spread the knowledge of previous civilizations here. Enable them to develop better and faster. This way. When the future collapse truly erupts, humans of this civilization can also easily cope with it. Danzhu whispered out his thoughts. They may not be able to solve the final collapse, but relying on their knowledge of pre-civilization, it should be easy for the tribes of the country to resist the early collapse. It's not urgent. Wait and see. At least let's understand what kind of situation the Youshen clan is. Zhang Xian shook his head. There was a hint of doubt in her eyes. From the trade situation in that market, people in this era have become familiar with herbs and have also mastered certain cooking methods. Even broke away from barter and started using shells as currency. But in certain aspects, this market, however, is extremely rudimentary and does not seem like a place that should exist during the trading period. Instead, it seems like an area that could only appear in primitive tribes. No. The strangest thing should be language. Why can we communicate with them easily without any language barriers? Zhang Xian suddenly thought of something. They just woke up from their slumber and didn't react so quickly to some strange things. But when you think back, you can discover how many outrageous things there are. Especially in the language of communication, how could there be no communication barriers between pre-civilization and modern civilization? And the languages of each tribe should also be different. Even if there were so many people gathered by the divine clan, their language habits should be different. Why is the current market shouting so similar, or even basically the same? Dr. Su spread language to civilization. No. He has been in the second God's key for over 40,000 years, executing the Hengsha plan. Gracie's arc plan is even more impossible to align with modern civilization. Can you say that? There are other pioneers who have spread our original language to modern civilization. Zhang Xian's mind was thinking rapidly. Dr. Mei initially left behind many plans, but she knew nothing about the executors of other plans and whether those plans were successful or failed. But it can be known that spreading language to modern civilization should be a part of the Spark plan. Why did it suddenly become like this? Their jobs were taken away by unknown pioneers. Zhang Xian. What happened? Hua's voice rang out. She noticed that Zhang Xian's face was very strange, and her vigilance also rose at this moment. Zhang Xian didn't answer. She just shook her head and looked around. After discovering what she was looking for, she quickly walked forward. This is a good thing left by our ancestors. If you want at least 10 shells. The salesperson saw that Ning Shen picked up the bamboo slips from his stall and quickly spoke up. Seeing the girl's strong desire to buy, the bamboo slips that could have been bought with 9 shells were elevated to 10 shells by him, and he was proud of his quick wit. Ning Shen did not answer the conversation. She is carefully reading the text on the bamboo slips. At the head of Mount Li in the 4 classics of the Middle Ages, it is called Mount Luti, with many jade on its top and gold on its bottom. Sweet water flows out of it, while it flows northward into Luo, with many lingsher among them 50 miles west. It is called the Mountain of Pigs. There are many rocks on it, and there are beasts on it. Its shape is like a raccoon dog and its eyes are human. Its name is 120 miles to the west, called Mount Li. Its yang is abundant with jade, and its yin is abundant in search. The more Ning Shen continued reading, the more solemn his face became. Normally, the tribal era should have used painting as the language of writing. But why is there such a perfect writing system on this bamboo slip? And this writing is completely consistent with our civilized and divine writing. The most crucial thing is, why were bamboo slips invented during the tribal era? Ning Shen's mind was filled with confusion and confusion. It can be seen from the content on this bamboo slip. The person who recorded so much information must have traveled to many places. On this point, Ning Shen suspected that the person was likely one of the pioneers of pre-civilization. Otherwise, people in this era, not to mention leaving the tribe, as long as they go a little further, they may be buried in the mouths of beasts. Only the pioneers of pre-civilization use such abilities. Only the pioneers of pre-civilization can have the same writing system as them. Who recorded the content on this bamboo slip? Ning Shen looked up at the seller. From the content on this bamboo slip, it is likely that the pioneer came from China, otherwise the written text should not be the hieroglyphs of China. But there were too many divine beings in the fire-chasing moth, and she couldn't immediately determine who it might be. After hearing Ning Shen's words, the salesperson said with a puzzled expression. Who recorded it? Of course it's Zhu. Didn't Zhu go to your tribe?